Smoke filled the sky above the burning fields of planet Varnock. Red dust covered everything, and the ground shook with every explosion. The war between humans and the Zelari aliens had turned this world into a nightmare. Soldiers screamed, machines roared, and the air smelled like fire and blood. Kelthera, the proud warrior of the Zelari, lay in the mud. Her long silver hair was stained with dirt. Her breathing was heavy. A plasma shot had hit her spine during the last ambush. She couldn't move her legs. She couldn't even crawl. She had once led charges, hunted humans, and stood as the finest female warrior of her tribe. But now she was nothing, just a broken body, lying in the middle of a battlefield, waiting to be trampled or left behind. Footsteps echoed nearby. Her own squad, Thera, a familiar voice said. "You're still alive?" Thera looked up and saw her commander Drixon. Relief filled her chest. "Help me. I can't move." She whispered, but Drixon didn't kneel. He didn't even flinch. "You're slowing us down. The human reinforcements are coming. I'm sorry." And just like that, he turned. He left her there, in the mud like a broken weapon no longer useful. One by one, the others passed by her. Some looked away. Others didn't even look at all. Warriors she had fought beside. Brothers, sisters, all gone. Tears filled her alien eyes. But she blinked them away. Zelari don't cry. But inside her, something shattered. Just then, another sound approached boots. Heavy human boots. Kael'thera's hand reached for her dagger, but it was gone. She could do nothing. A tall figure appeared through the smoke, a human soldier. Broad-shouldered, wearing old scratched armor. His rifle was slung over his back. His face was hard, covered in dirt and blood. A large scar ran across his right cheek. He stopped a few feet from her and just stared. Kelthera snarled weakly. "Do it, kill me." The human didn't lift his weapon. Instead, he dropped to one knee. "What the hell are you doing out here alone?" he asked in a calm voice. She was confused. "Why are you talking to me?" The soldier looked around quickly, then back at her. "You're paralyzed." Kelthera nodded slowly, her pride shaking as she spoke. "Yes, I can't move." "My enemy," he muttered, more to himself. Kelthera closed her eyes, waiting for the shot, but it never came. Instead, she felt strong arms lift her. She gasped, shocked. "What are you doing?" she cried. "Saving your life," he answered. "Simply why?" she asked, her voice filled with pain and confusion. The human didn't look at her face as he spoke, "Because nobody saved me when I was on the ground." The smoke around them thickened. Drones buzzed overhead. Snipers could be anywhere. Could die just by carrying her, and yet kept going. Each step he took was heavy. Her armor made her weight even worse. He grunted, struggling, but didn't slow down. Kelthera's head rested against his back. She could feel the heat of his body, his heartbeat. This wasn't mercy. This was madness. "You'll get killed," she whispered. "Probably," he said. Another explosion shook the ground. A piece of metal flew past them, slicing his arm. Trickled, but he didn't stop. He tightened his grip on her. "Stupid human," she muttered. "You should have let me rot." "Yeah, I should have," he replied. "But I didn't." As they reached the broken walls of an old watchtower, he kicked open the door and stepped inside. Dust and webs filled the space, but it was quiet. For now, he gently laid her down on a broken cot. "You need water," said, opening his canteen and holding it to her lips. Kelthera hesitated, then drank. Silence passed between them. Finally, she spoke again, her voice bitter. "You'll be punished by your command for helping me." "I know," he said, "and I'm your enemy." "Not today," he said, sitting beside the cot. "Today, you're just a soldier who got left behind, like I was once." She looked at him for a long time. "What's your name, human?" she asked. He looked at her with tired eyes. "Jackson. Sergeant Jackson Kane." Kelthera took a shaky breath and whispered, "I'm Kelthera, of the Zelari Bloodblades." Jackson nodded. Well, Calthera. Welcome to the team of the unwanted.
Outside.
The war raged on. Inside that ruined tower, two enemies sat in silence. And for the first time, neither of them felt alone. Sergeant Jackson Kane knew this was suicide. The moment he stepped into the ruined tower with an alien warrior on his back, the world turned against him. He wasn't just carrying a body, he was carrying a decision. One that could destroy his career. Or worse, he placed Calthera gently on the cot and looked around. Cracked walls, old metal beams, shattered equipment. No lights, no power. But it would have to do. He tapped his comlink. Command. This is Sergeant Kane. I've secured temporary shelter. East Quadrant, Sector 9. A cold voice replied. Copy that. Status of the asset. Jackson hesitated and replied, I have a survivor injured. Requires immediate medical evac. Civilian or military? He looked at Calthera, still weak, half-conscious, but watching him. Alien military. Silence. Then the voice returned, sharper now. Repeat, you're sheltering an enemy combatant. She's paralyzed, Jackson said. No threat. She was abandoned. I'm not leaving her here to die. Negative, Sergeant. You are ordered to terminate the asset and return to rendezvous. That is a direct command. Jackson stared at the comm. His hand hovered over the confirm button. He didn't press it. Command transmissions breaking up, he lied, going radio silent to avoid detection. Before they could argue, he turned the comm off. Calthera had heard it all. You disobeyed, she said slowly. Jackson shrugged. Wouldn't be the first time? She studied him. Do humans always risk their own kind for the enemy? No, he replied. Most wouldn't, I shouldn't. Then why? She asked again, truly confused now. Jackson leaned against the wall, pulled out a ration bar, took a bite, then handed the rest to her. Long ago, I was left on the battlefield too. My legs were crushed. My own squad ran. I dragged myself across the mud for 2 days. She blinked. You survived? Barely, he said. Someone found me, a medic, disobeyed orders to save me, got court-martialed. But I lived. At her directly now. Guess I owe the universe one. Calthera chewed in silence. Her body still refused to move, but her mind, her pride, her view of humans, all of it was shifting. The night was cruel on planet Varnak, on cold winds, howled through cracks in the walls. Jackson made a fire from broken crates. He wrapped his own jacket around Calthera. You'll freeze, she warned. I've been colder. As she rested, her head leaned to the side. She noticed something strange in his armor. There were alien symbols scratched on the inside plate. She frowned. Those are Zalari words. Jackson nodded. Yeah. I copied them from a dead warrior's armor years ago. Meant to translate it later. Never did. You kept our language? I don't know. It reminded me that our enemies aren't monsters, just people with different faces. Calthera felt her throat tighten. No human had ever said such things. To them, Zalari were beasts, killers, no emotions. But Jackson was different, and that scared her more than death. Suddenly, a faint sound echoed outside. Click, then another. Calthera tensed. We're not alone. Jackson dropped the ration bar and pulled out his rifle. He moved silently to the window. 3. Figures cloaked, moving fast through the ruins. They weren't human soldiers, bounty hunters. Calthera whispered. My people sent them. Your own people want you dead, Jackson asked, his voice low. I'm a failure, she said, bitterly. And a loose end? He glanced back at her, then made a decision. You trust me, alien? She paused and nodded slowly. Jackson picked her up again, not gently but with purpose. He kicked down the back wall of the tower. Dust and metal crashed. He ran, bullets flew, they were spotted. The chase was brutal. Jackson jumped over rubble with Calthera in his arms. Weaving through tight alleys of the ruined city, the bounty hunters chased without mercy. But Jackson knew this terrain. He was a survivor, One wrong turn brought them face to face with a hunter, some massive brute with glowing eyes. "Drop the asset," the hunter barked, "and you live." Jackson stepped forward, slowly, then threw a flash grenade. Boom. The light blinded the hunters. Jackson ran, heart pounding, lungs burning. He kicked open a sewer gate and dropped down, splash dark, wet. Safe for now, he sat. Kilthira down against the wall. She coughed, catching her breath. That was reckless. He replied, grinning. "I'm full of bad decisions." But Kilthira didn't laugh. She reached out, touched his arm lightly. "You risked everything. For me," he looked at her quietly. "Someone has to show your people what mercy looks like." The old sewer tunnel was quiet, too quiet. Drips echoed through the dark, damp space. Faint green moss covered the walls. Pipes above hissed with ancient steam. The air was heavy with rot and old war oil. But for Sergeant Jackson, Kane, and Kilthira, this forgotten place was now their only shelter. Jackson laid her down gently on a dry patch near an old maintenance wall. His hands were bruised, scraped, and trembling. His body screamed for rest, but he wasn't done yet. Kilthira's breathing was shallow, her skin pale and cracked. She hadn't eaten properly in days, and her lower body was still motionless. But her eyes were awake now, watching him, full of questions. Jackson unpacked his field kit. "We're off the grid here. Should be safe. ... For now." Kilthira scanned the tunnel. "You humans have places like this?" He gave a short laugh. "No, just a gift from your side's orbital strikes. Blasted half the city underground. Welcome to what's left of Outpost Theta." She looked around, taking in the broken lights, the rusted pipes, the hidden world below the war. "You've been here before," she said. Jackson nodded. "Long ago? I was stationed here during the first Solari assault. Lost half my squad above. I escaped down here, like a rat hiding from the flame." He moved closer and began checking her legs again. No response. He frowned. "Still nothing?" She shook her head. Numb. Cold. He pulled out a small injector and held it up. "This might help stims. Old military tech." Kilthira narrowed her eyes. "Why do you keep helping me?" Jackson paused, then knelt beside her. His voice was low and honest. "We're a warrior. It's left behind. Not for being weak, but for being broken. I know what that feels like." Kilthira stared at him. "You are not what I expected a human to be." "You're not what I expected either," Jackson said. He injected the stim. She flinched, then silence. Then, gah. Right toe twitched. Her eyes widened. "I felt that." Jackson smiled slightly. "Told you, not giving up on you." An hour later, Kilthira rested in silence while Jackson reinforced a barricade across the tunnel entrance. He took old pipes, wiring and scrap to build traps. As he worked, Kilthira spoke again softly this time. "I was the daughter of a war master." Jackson turned. "You never mentioned that. I never thought I'd speak to a human long enough for it to matter." She looked down, her voice cracked, even in its alien tones. "Trained to be a warrior since childhood. Was always told to never cry, never show fear, never love. I followed that. I became the best." And yet she whispered, "They left me too. Die like I was garbage." Jackson walked back, knelt in front of her. "I've seen human leaders do the same," he said. "You follow orders, kill for them, bleed for them. Man, the moment you're not useful, you're a problem," she finished. They sat in silence. Two soldiers, two tools thrown away by their own sides. Suddenly, a faint sound echoed down the tunnel -SCRRRTTCH metal. Scraping on metal. Jax stood instantly, rifle up. Kilthira listened. Her alien, hearing sharper than his. "That's not a rat," she said, clank. Another sound, closer. Jackson whispered, "We've been followed." He slid in front of her, weapon steady. His eyes scanned the shadows. Then a shape emerged, short, fast-moving, cloaked in rags, too small for a soldier, too fast for a drone. The figure leapt toward Jackson, and he fired. Click. No bullet. Jammed. The figure knocked him down. Sharp metal claws slashed his side. Calthea screamed. Trying to move, her fingers twitched, but her legs still failed her. Jackson wrestled with the attacker, finally grabbing an old wrench and smashing it across its head. The attacker fell. Sparks flew. A synthetic face stared back. A tracker bot, Jackson breathed. Modified for stealth kills. Calthea's voice trembled. That model... ... Only Zellery nobles use those. Jackson wiped blood from his mouth. Your family sent it. Calthea nodded slowly. My mother. She always hated weakness. Jackson stared at the broken bot. They're not stopping. You're not supposed to survive. Calthea's eyes turned hard. Then maybe I need to start fighting again. She reached out, grabbed his hand, and pulled herself slightly upward, using just her arms. Jackson watched her, something shifting in his chest. You really are a warrior.
Hi.
And you, she said, with a rare smirk, are the strangest human I've ever met. Asterisk, the sewer tunnel had grown colder. Sergeant Jackson Kane sat with his back against the damp wall, one hand pressing a blood-stained bandage on his ribs. Across from him, Calthea lay propped against a broken crate, her silver hair now loose and tangled around her sharp features. She was breathing hard, but her eyes had fire again. The earlier attack from the tracker bot had shaken both of them, not just because of the danger, but because it came from her own kind. Jackson broke the silence first. That machine wasn't meant to scare you. It was meant to make sure you didn't live long enough to speak. Calthea didn't. Look at him right away. She stared at her own trembling hands that had once held a sword, like it was part of her body. My death is a political cleanup, she said coldly. Nothing more. He frowned. Why? What could they want to hide? She gave a small, bitter laugh. Not what they want to erase who I am. Jackson narrowed his eyes. Who are you, Calthea? She finally met his gaze. My true name is Calthea Vornix, heiress of the Bloodblade throne. Jackson sat up straighter. The what now? She nodded slowly. I'm the firstborn daughter of the Vorn lineage. My mother is the grand strategist of the Eastern Zelari territories. When the first came of age, I was given a choice, marry for alliance, or lead troops into battle. Jackson raised an eyebrow. And you picked the battlefield? I picked freedom, she said. But I disobeyed when I refused to execute prisoners, Solari prisoners accused of cowardice. I was punished, demoted, and sent to the front line. It's a message to others. Even noble blood bleeds when it disobeys. Jackson whistled under his breath, and now they're tying up loose ends. Yes, she said, voice cold. I was supposed to die out there on the field, paralyzed and alone. Quiet, forgotten. Jackson reached into his bag and took out a folded piece of cloth. Carefully, he began cleaning a scrape on her forehead. She didn't pull away, you know. He said my father was a general. Everyone expected me to follow his orders, salute his medals, be the perfect soldier. Calthea tilted her head. Did you obey? He chuckled. I joined the military just to piss him off. But once I got into the war, I realized he was right about one thing. She waited. He said war eats everyone, but it loves to chew the rebels first. She gave a soft smirk. Smart man. Jackson smiled, then looked at her. Again, really looked. You're not like the others. Calthea. Smile faded. Neither are you. Outside the tunnel, faint vibrations trembled through the ground. Calthea felt it before Jackson did. She turned her head sharply. Do you hear that? Jackson stood, rifle in hand. Yeah, marching, not just footsteps. Mex, he cursed. They tracked us again. Calthea grabbed the metal pole she'd been using to support herself. Go, she said. Leave me, I'll stall them. He stared at her like she'd lost her mind. No, you don't understand, she growled. They want me. You can still escape. No, Jackson repeated, louder. You want to throw yourself away. Again, you've already been betrayed once. I won't be the second one. She looked away. It's not just about me, she whispered. If I live, I become a symbol. A broken royal who didn't die in silence. It could start something. A rebellion? Jackson asked. Kalthira nodded. Maybe not tomorrow, but someday. He moved closer and handed her a blade. Rusted, but still sharp. Then let's make sure you survive long enough to be that symbol. The tunnel began to shake. Spotlights cut through the darkness outside. The whir of machines. The clank of metal boots. Jackson looked at her. You ready? Kalthira tightened her grip on the blade. Always, he grinned. 'Cause I have a terrible plan. What is it? Fight, run, and make them angry enough to call for backup. Why would we want that? She asked, confused. Jax winked. Because I secretly activated a distress beacon. Human recon might be closer than they think. She laughed a real laugh. Reckless and hopeful. That's your kind in a nutshell. And you? He asked. Broken, but not done. The sun never reached the tunnels beneath Varnock. But even in that endless dark, something had changed. Kalthira sat upright now, because her body had healed, but because her will refused to let her stay on the ground anymore. Jackson had given her more stims, wrapped her cracked ribs, and built her a brace using scrap metal and wiring from an old maintenance robot. It wasn't pretty, but it worked. She looked down at her trembling legs. She hadn't walked since the blast. Now she would try. Jackson stood close but didn't touch her. I'll catch you if you fall, he said. Kalthira shook her head. No, let me fall. I need to fight gravity on my own, he nodded. She pressed her palms against the wall and pushed. Her legs trembled. Her knees buckled. She screamed and she fell. Her body hit the stone floor hard. Pain shot up her spine. She bit down on her tongue. Jackson stepped forward, but she held up a shaking hand. Don't. He froze. I'm not that girl lying in the mud anymore, she said through gritted teeth. I'm still Kalthira of the Bloodblade line. And I will stand. She gritted her teeth, dragged herself upright, tried again. She fell again, and again, and again. Hours passed. She bled. She shook. She cried when she thought he wasn't looking. But she didn't stop. Jackson watched in silence, his heart pounding. Throat tight. He had seen soldiers break bones, charge through bullets, even leap into fire. But nothing compared to the way she kept rising. Later, Kalthira leaned against a beam, barely standing, but standing. She looked up at Jackson. You look surprised. I've seen Deathworld beasts that would run from what you just did. She gave a tired smile. So humans think flattery is a weapon? No, he replied. But I think you just scared me in a good way. She chuckled, then winced. Careful. Your kind of charm might be more dangerous than war. Jackson walked over and helped her sit again. This time she didn't stop him. As she rested, he pulled out an old device, something like a holopad, cracked and dirty. What's that? She asked. Something I found in the ruins. Might have a signal link? He tapped the screen. A faded image appeared, a small girl, dark-skinned, with bright eyes and a toothy grin. She stood beside a man in uniform. Your daughter, Kalthira? Asked softly. Jackson nodded slowly. Yeah, haven't seen her in 3 years. She thinks I'm dead. Kalthira stared at the image, her throat suddenly dry. You carry your pain quietly. So do you, he said. The tunnel was quiet for a long time. Then she asked, if you make it out of here alive, what will you do? Jackson looked up. Go home, hug her, and then never join another war. She looked down. And if I make it out, I become a walking target. People will never stop hunting me. Jackson put the holopad away. Then don't go back to them. She frowned. And go where? We thought for a second, then said, come with me. Kalthira blinked. You would take me to Earth? He shrugged. Why not? You're strong. Smarter than most. I think my daughter would like you. Kalthira stared at him, truly speechless for once. And then, tunnel lights flickered. A warning tone buzzed in Jackson's earpiece. Movement, he said. Scouts coming. Kalthira tried to stand. Her legs barely obeyed. but they obeyed. She held the makeshift staff he had made for her and took a single step forward. "I'm not hiding anymore," she said. Jackson grinned. "Good, because I need a partner to hold the left flank." She moved. Beside him, each step slow and shaky, but full of fire. She looked him dead in the eyes and said, "Let them come." At the tunnel's mouth, shadows moved. A scout team 6 elite Zellery hunters, armed and masked. They saw Jackson. They saw the figure next to him, limping, broken. And then they heard a voice call, Thera's voice ring through the corridor like steel. "You failed to kill me. Now come, finish the job, if you still have the courage." The hunters hesitated. Their target was no longer helpless, and she wasn't alone. Asterisk at the edge of the tunnel. Shadows flickered like ghosts. 6 armored Zelari hunters stood in formation silent, deadly and sent by Kelthira's own bloodline. Their masks were smooth and cold. Their weapons glowed with green plasma. Each one had been trained since birth to eliminate threats without mercy. They didn't see a threat now, just a battered, human indented armor, and a crippled alien woman with a limp, but that was their mistake. 6 of them, Jackson whispered, crouched behind a broken vent, all armed. Formation spread. Kelthira leaned against the wall, gripping her makeshift staff. "Go for me first. My face is the target." Jackson looked at her. "Let them come for you." She raised a brow. "That sounds like a bad plan." He smirked. "That's because it is a bad plan, but it might work." He slipped around the far side of the corridor and set 3 improvised mines stolen from dead drones into the cracked flooring. He moved like a shadow, each step quiet. Meanwhile, Kelthira stepped forward into the faint light of the tunnel. Entrance, her long silver hair was tied back with frayed cloth. Her armor was cracked, her body bruised. But her eyes burned. It's like a dying star. She stood tall, not with strength, with defiance. "I am Kelthira Vornex," she shouted. Her voice echoed through the tunnel. "Daughter of the Bloodblades, you left me to die?" The lead hunter stepped forward. "You are a disgrace," he replied coldly. "You betrayed your blood, your kind. You protected a human. You," she spat back, "forgot what it means to be a warrior." He raised his blaster. Jackson's voice crackled in her earpiece. "Now." Kelthira struck the wall behind her with her staff, activating a pressure plate Jackson had wired. Boom. The floor erupted beneath 2 hunters, swallowing them in a cloud of smoke and fire. The others scattered. Confused, just as Jackson charged from the flank with his rifle blazing. The tunnel became chaos. Plasma bolts zipped past his head. Kelthira, still unsteady, swung her staff into the leg of a hunter trying to flank Jackson. Her movement was clumsy but powerful. The alien fell hard. A blade hissed near her neck. Another hunter had closed in. She raised her arms to block, but the strike was too fast. Suddenly crack. The attacker was flung backward, crashing into a pipe. Jackson had tackled him mid-air, blood streaking down his cheek. "You okay?" he shouted, panting. Kelthira just growled. "Worry about yourself, human." They fought like lightning and thunder, Jackson with fire, Kelthira with fury. She moved in pain, dragging her half-working legs forward. Each step felt like fire ripping through her spine. But she kept moving, because pain meant she was still alive, because falling again would mean death not just for her, but for the one man who never left her behind. 3 hunters remained. They regrouped, changed strategy. One took to the high pipeworks above, another circled behind. The third raised a pulse cannon, too large for close quarters, but perfect too. Collapsed the tunnel on them both. Jackson saw it too late. "Get down," he yelled. Kelthira didn't move. She couldn't, not fast enough. But then, roar filled the air. Not from a man, not from a Zellery, from outside. From above. The tunnel ceiling exploded, and from the smoke and metal a human mech dropped, like thunder. Its blue lights burned through the dust. Its metallic voice boomed, "Sergeant Kane, stand down. Target secured." Reinforcements inbound. Althea stared, shocked. The mech turned and vaporized the hunter with the pulse cannon in. One strike. Jackson pulled Kelthera close and whispered, "I told you." I called for backup. The last two hunters tried to run, but the mech's drone swarm swept them aside like flies. Minutes later, a silence returned to the tunnel. The remaining walls groaned under the weight of smoke and broken stone. Calthera collapsed to her knees. Jackson caught her before she hit the ground. "You're safe now," he said. She looked at the mech, then at him. But what now? Back above ground in the ruins of Varnik's eastern quadrant, a human dropship descended. Soldiers approached, cautious, unsure. Kelthera was loaded onto a stretcher, but she held Jackson's hand tightly. "Don't let them take me away," she said, voice shaking. "Don't let them silence me." He leaned in close. "I won't," he whispered. "You're not just some alien warrior anymore, Kale. You're the proof." The human base was quiet when the dropship landed, not the silence of peace, but the silence of tension. Soldiers watched from behind armored glass as two figures stepped down the ramp, a bloodied human in torn gear, and an alien woman with silver hair limping beside him, wrapped in a thermal blanket, one arm gripping his for support. Calthera could feel their stares like daggers. She was not welcome here, but she stood tall anyway. Inside the command tent, high-ranking officers gathered around a table glowing with tactical displays. A human general stood in front, arms crossed, expression sharp. Behind him, a holoscreen flickered on showing Zalari faces. Calthera recognized them all: warlords, advisors, and her mother. Her breath caught. Jackson stood beside her, unshaken. "General," Roth barked. "Sergeant Kane, do you understand the gravity of what you've done?" "Yes, sir. You disobeyed a direct order. You sheltered a known alien combatant. You risked exposure of military secrets." Jackson didn't blink. "Yes, sir. And you're not even denying it?" "No, sir." Kelthera watched him, confused by how calmly he stood before those who held his fate. "Then explain yourself," Roth snapped. "Why risk everything? For her?" Jackson looked over at Kelthera, then back at the general, because no one else would. Silence. He continued, voice firm now. She was paralyzed, left to die. By her own people. She could have been my enemy, but she wasn't. Not in that moment. He pointed at the Zalari leaders on the screen. She was their problem, their shame, so I made her my responsibility. Roth's jaw clenched. "You could have started a political disaster. I might have started something better," Jackson replied. Kelthera took a breath, then stepped forward. Despite the pain, she looked directly at her mother's cold, perfect face on the screen. "I know why you sent those assassins," she said. "You wanted to erase me? Not for betrayal. Oh, but because I showed something you fear mercy." Her mother didn't blink. "You aligned yourself with a species of chaos." Calthera smiled faintly. "Yes, and for the first time, I felt free." Murmurs broke out among the Zalari War Council. Calthera raised her chin. "I no longer recognize your rule. I no longer follow your laws. From this day forward, I fight for those who are cast aside." Her mother's screen went black. Transmission ended. General Roth sighed and rubbed his temple. "This is above my clearance now. Both of you will be held under watch until the council decides." Calthera looked at Jackson, uncertain. But before they could be taken away, another voice interrupted. General Roth, young communications officer, stepped into the room, pale and shaking. "You need to see this." He pulled up a live broadcast. On the HOLO screen, it showed drone footage, grainy but powerful. Calthera dragging herself to her feet. Calthera striking a Zalari hunter with her staff. Calthera and Jackson fighting together. Side by side, the footage had already gone viral. Billions were watching, across human colonies and Zalari systems alike. The human who carried his enemy, the warrior who refused to die, "hope from the ashes." Comments flooded the screen. "I thought aliens were monsters. I was wrong. If she can forgive, why can't we? Let them lead. General Roth stared at the screen in disbelief. So much for containment. 2 days later, the decision came. Jackson and Calthera were not punished. They were offered something else entirely, a joint role in the newly forming Alliance Recovery Corps. Special unit built to respond to war-torn zones, rescue survivors, and prevent future battles from starting. Jackson accepted immediately. Calthera hesitated until she saw something outside the base gates. A little human girl, standing with a sign. Thank you for saving her. Calthera blinked. The girl wasn't talking about herself. She was thanking her for saving her father. That night, Calthera stood beside Jackson on the hill outside the base, looking up at the stars. Do you think your people will ever truly accept mine? She asked. Jackson took a deep breath. I don't know, but we gave them something they never had before. She glanced at him. What's that? He smiled. A reason to hope. She didn't speak after that. She just stood there quietly beside him, her body still aching, but her spirit unbroken months later. A rescue team touched down on a ruined moon colony. From the shuttle stepped to figures in black and silver armor, both marked with the new crest of the Alliance Corps. A little alien child looked up and whispered, Who are they? An old miner answered with awe in his voice. Those are the ones who fight for the forgotten.